Welcome, everybody, to Dungeon Apes, a Dungeons and Dragons podcast hosted by myself, Drew Silva, and Travis Steven.
That's me.
Yeah.
Yes. So this is episode 3.
This is our third episode.
It's our third episode.
This is 3 weeks. I'm just super stoked. We've made it past one episode, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That's always like the thing is with podcasts.
Getting
you
to the
never know
first
if it's
one.
going to stick around.
Yeah, because you really don't know if you have chemistry or the ability to keep a conversation until you do it. And that's really what a podcast is all about, is actually just bouncing back and forth an idea. And if you can't do that with somebody, then it doesn't, there's no podcast.
Right. I am going to do something a little different off the rails. I'm going to use this as a great time to run through some announcements.
Sure, go for it.
So those of you that follow us on YouTube, or we're on Podbean, and now we're on iTunes, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're on iTunes now. Couple things. One, we have a live stream every Friday night of Dungeons and Dragons called Adventaria Ascends, and that's on Twitch TV /Average Ape Studios.
Correct. And Facebook.com
Live.
/AverageApe.
Correct.
Yes.
10 p.m. we start. Sometimes it takes us a little bit longer, but usually around that time, and we play for 3 to 4 hours, and it's great.
Sometimes longer.
And
so if you can't stay up that late, or if you're East Coast, and some of our East Coasters do stay up for it, but if you can't, you can always watch it the next day on Facebook or Twitch. I highly, listen to me, watch it on Twitch, okay? I got so many nice, beautiful cameras and things, and audio, and Facebook just basically funnels that all into like a straw, and that straw is like 2005 is what they try to shove it through. So if you can watch it on Twitch, you get the full experience that way.
It's much better on Twitch.
Yes.
Facebook,
they compress everything. They compress everything because they have such huge volume to worry about, and they're trying to save server space. So they're like, all right, 720p, lower the kilobytes of the audio down, and if it's live, let's give it a 2-minute delay. I don't know.
Yeah, it's so disappointing. I didn't even have words for it.
Yes, it's
bottom. It was father disappointment levels.
Yeah.
But anyhow, today we're going to talk about creating a world and world building, which I think will be really fun. I think if people who are watching our podcast, this is kind of something that you can come in at any level. Last week's podcast, the first episode was kind of an introductory to D&D and to who we are. Second week's episode was sort of an introductory to characters. And while there is some different levels to that, this week really is for everyone across the board. Everyone gets to gain something out of this podcast. I hope you do. I still need to hear more from you people. I need YouTube comments. I need questions on our Facebook page. Get involved with this.
It makes a big difference.
Yeah, helps us.
Starting off with world building, again, me being the novice, I guess what I'm going to do is shoot questions to you, and you can kind of frame world building off of that. So
I'm down.
From my perspective, if I'm building my first world, right? I think we talked before about mimicking life to art. So looking at things that you currently know to exist, like your own neighboring area or maybe where you grew up, and finding common elements that you can kind of translate into the world that you're building, with not necessarily like naming the things the same way, but giving yourself a mental picture of where your world is beginning. Is that kind of what we're starting with, like the actual physical building of an area?
I think that's part of it.
Okay.
That's part of the component. Obviously, some people want to start in a realm that's you can't find any sort of parallel likeness to the real world.
Right.
I mean, some people go full fantasy.
I was going to say, do you start bigger? Do you start like, okay, am I on Earth?
Right.
If I am, then where? And if I am on Earth, is it within our timeline of universe, or is it in a totally different timeline of universe?
As a DM, I think you have to start with the big picture, because the worst thing that's going to happen is you're playing out this small, nice setting you build that you're comfortable with, and then all of a sudden your players are talking to an NPC and they're like, so about how many leagues is this town away? Or where could I find this, this, and this? And as a DM, you're kind of on the spot like, oh, I haven't got that far yet.
Right. You should probably have that figured out. So world building helps you in the long run. It's kind of like upfront work that in the long run throughout playing out, you have instant answers because you're not fabricating on the spot. You're just thinking about, okay, where in my world are they really?
Right. There's two things I think that are key to that.
Okay.
For your first time building a world. Number one, come up with a timeline so you can accurately place your people on a timeline.
Ooh, so like and like something similar like a catalyst too, like after reincarnation or post cataclysm or something.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Think writers typically do this a lot whenever they come up with a new project, and that's because I call it linear depth, because what we see is, okay, there's the horizon, this is the physical world, and the depth is in what you're in the present is. So your characters are in this city, and there's another city 6 miles away. That's your depth. Well, you might come across an NPC, and there might be something historical or whatnot. What's the backstory behind that, and why does it matter? And that's why you create a timeline. So create a timeline first.
Okay.
Step one.
Timeline.
Step two, come up with what you want in your world. That's the most key thing, is what do you want your world to be about? I mean, what do you want in it? You can go off the typical D&D fantasy scape, or you can start adding your own little touches on it.
And I think if I'm trying to understand this right, it can be something similar to like when people do themes. Yeah. Also, like post-apocalyptic world or steampunk world, where you have a general theme. Is that what you kind of mean? Where like, what do you want of your world? Like, general themed starting point type thing? Yeah,
I would say, okay, think about these things. There's humans in your world. There's elves in your world. There's dwarves in your world.
Okay, the people.
Yeah.
That's a great place to start too.
So have those components first, okay? Then take it a step further. Okay, are there nations to these people? Are there areas that these people dwell? And then start building that physically on a map where these might be. So
even simple like just squares. Could you do like square? This square is of this region. Square. This is of this region.
Binder. I have graph paper.
That's a perfect example.
But you just take graph paper and just blocks.
Elves.
Blocks.
Goblins.
Yeah. And
nerds.
There's your little kind of, doesn't have to be an actual map, just area.
Got it. Okay, so area, timeline, the people, and the
physical
theme.
Map and a timeline.
Okay.
Is your starting point.
Okay.
From your starting point, have your basics. Okay. Humans are in this area. Elves are in this area. This is forest. This is the ocean. These are snowy peaks. There's your baseline. Then from there, you get into the really, really fun stuff. But don't skip over any important details in the baseline. Spend some time on that.
I think that could matter. Even like the first thing that jumped to my mind, if you're world building and you have like when you said snowy peaks and stuff like that, you can have like we do, like world renowned landmarks, like Mount Everest, like everyone, like these big things that aren't just like, oh yeah, those are mountains, right? Those are known mountains throughout the world, you know what I mean, type thing. And so you can kind of outline some of those big features on your planet that are a little more that jump out a little more.
Have the big features,
right?
Which is big. That's super key. What you touched on.
Not just mountains.
Some of the most prolific writers in the world and their fantasy scapes, their fantasy worlds, whether it's George R.R. Martin and of course J.R.R. Tolkien, everything that they've sort of built comes from what we understand in our world in some capacity. Right. Mountain ranges, big deserts, huge oceans, whatever it may be. When it comes to nature and the world that they're in, do we know of a fantasy world that didn't have a tree? Or a fantasy world that didn't have some sort of soil or some body of water or...
True. There's always some amazing something or other that set it apart. Yeah. That is part of nature in the physical world.
So those are key factors. Yeah. Those are things you want to have planned out from the get-go. Okay. Then you start the hardest step. And that is legitimately building the themes that you hinted on in the world.
And like who doesn't like who, and why do they not like each other? Correct. And are these places at war? Were they at war? Will they be at war? Physically on your map, who would probably trade with who? And if they were trading, maybe what would they trade? What would this region have to offer another region? Those are all things, I guess, that would come within that detail step, right?
They do. There's a bunch of, and it's kind of depends on how in depth you want this to be. Right. I mean, how deep do you want your players to have the ability to dig.
Mm-hmm.
From that, you'll start putting pieces together. More so than anything is your willingness to keep grinding, because a world is never complete.
Right.
It's a constantly changing thing.
Absolutely. Even today, like even in our living world today, there's things that every day we're discovering. And so I think the very same would be true for the world that you're creating. Is every day you're going to be sculpting and discovering something new about your world that kind of tacks on top of the current existing outline you have for it.
It does. And remember, when the world's finished, you're putting players into it that can do whatever they want.
Right. And
to the world.
Right.
You have no control over it.
You can only kind of bounce them off of loose guardrails, but they can still jump those guardrails.
Oh yeah. Staring over at Tagatha in the corner. Speaking of ruining guardrails.
Speaking of jumping guardrails.
No, I mean, so for example, every single group, unless you have a perfect group, pretty much every single group's going to experience this player. Mm-hmm. Your party walks into this awesome landscaped area, and there's a statue of a god. Mm-hmm. And you're like, oh, you have the one player's like, who's that god? Talking to an NPC. NPC's like, this is the god that saved everything. Mm-hmm. And we all love him, and he's the best thing ever, and this statue means everything to us. And you have that one person in the party that's like, I'm going to take down that statue.
Blow it up.
Exactly. The one dude that's like, that's nice, but
is it worth 5 gold?
Yeah. There's always one.
Yeah.
So have the ability to change your world. Mm-hmm. Have it. It's really, think of Minecraft, right?
Yeah. Don't shit on Minecraft.
Every single player is a TNT block.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
And when you drop them into your world, they're just little TNT blocks.
Yeah.
Just waiting to
pop.
Explode on
They'll
everything.
have different fuses.
Yeah.
You know, certain areas are going to trigger that fuse instantly. Others, you might stay just smoldering for a good 10 episodes or 10 campaign
eventually
runs
it blows up.
until eventually, yeah, it's going to pop. Something's going to snap it. But, so in building your campaign, world building then has to just be one of the cornerstones for making a successful campaign.
It's probably the second biggest as far as a conducive campaign. I would say the world's the second most important part.
Okay.
The first most important part will always be character participation.
Oh, really?
And what they want. Player participation. Yeah. That's the first thing to any D&D campaign. Think about
That's true. That's true. Without it, there's nothing. You just have
it's
written
nothing.
word on a paper and some thoughts.
Go write a novella.
Yeah.
And don't collaborate with other people and say, I, Drew Silva, wrote this book. No one helped me. It was great.
Right.
D&D is not that.
It's a collaborative effort.
It is. It is. And sometimes DMs, I feel like, lose sight of that. They get so invested in their world and they become, and I'm guilty of this too, back when I was DMing when I was younger, is you get so invested in what you've built and you take it so seriously, and then when players come into your world
and make a mess,
you shoebox them.
Yeah. Because you're like, no. You stay, dink, stay from, keep walking down this road. Yeah. Don't look outside. That's exactly what I need you to do. And yeah. So you end up trying to essentially overprotect your thing you've made. You don't want anyone to make a mess of your room. You made it all nice and pretty how you want it. So you kind of want to keep it that way, but you've got to kind of break that mold, right?
Absolutely. You have to. You have to move on from the whole, protect my world sort of ideology. Yeah, that happens.
The ideology, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. That big word.
Cinnamon. Cinnamon.
5 times fast. Yeah. So essentially, when you're building a world, it's important that you've built it for other people to partake in it.
Right.
And know that there's going to be really cool leads you're going to leave out there that they're going to walk away from. And just let it go. Just, all right, save it.
Because, I mean, it still can exist. Like, if there was some shiny rock they're supposed to come across,
yeah,
it could still be there.
One of the things I like to do, too, is I never have a stagnant world. There's always current events changing. And each week, I have a page of things that have changed in the world since the last episode, during the last episode.
So, like, an updated, like, now this trade went through with this region. And so now, almost like a weekly newsletter to yourself about your world?
Pretty much. So
like a Twitter feed for your world.
Pretty much, yeah. It's kind of like it's an active timeline. Second episode, you guys went and dealt with a trading issue where caravans were being raided, Imperial caravans, and you guys reported back to the sheriff that the watcher of that road, the guard of the watch, was the person responsible for allowing these attacks to happen. Things have happened and transpired with that individual, with that trade route, and with those people involved. And since then,
right? Without our campaign being directly involved in it, it's still happening.
Yeah,
and even though it's not happening within our story and our timeline, or we're happening in our timeline, but not our own personal events. It's still something that's happening passively along with the outskirts of our campaign.
So it's beyond. So for some reason, if you guys run into that or go, it may come up later as the drop that caused that ripple effect.
Right. Now
they've appointed a new guard. You have increased patrols along that caravan lane. Now they're inquiring as to why there's such a rebellious precedent in this area. Those things are happening, and you guys haven't. The campaign may not even know about it.
And we may never know about it. Yeah, exactly. Right. But the fact is that it's actually happening. So treating your world like a world would be kind of a passive step that you need to really truly look at it, not as just like this physical framework that you're just dropping people into, but a living, breathing thing.
I think if you want to blow your friends' minds, blow your playgroup's mind, blow the viewer's mind if you guys stream, whatever it may be, then you're constantly working on your world.
That's awesome.
That makes more craft fun. Ever.
It's us. Yeah, that's true. Any craft ever. The more work you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. If you look at a cookie cutter design of something, you're just like, whatever, it doesn't matter. I'm going to keep them inside this dungeon, and if they leave, everything's on fire. I don't care. And so there's going to be in this, drawn out sketch, and there's a guy here and a guy here, and that's it. And that's your little bubble of things. Cool. That might be fun for a one shot or something. But if you want to get that really immersive, like amazing experience, what if one of the guys is like, I'm going to go back to town. This isn't my thing. I'm going to go hang out. Like, even in our episode, we had a very clear battle laid out in front of us where it's like, okay, bad guys over here. Those bad guys. There's bad guys here. And then our NPC's like, well, I'm going to go back this way. And it was interesting because one of our party members actually went back with the NPC, which was a great plan. And it was... If you didn't have that, like let's say you didn't plan that ahead of time, like, yeah, maybe I was going to have the NPC go back, but just to get him off the field. Like, I didn't have a plan for him. But since you did build that into that, and you do have the NPC not just being like NPC 1, he's an actual person with characteristics and traits and everything else, he actually had his own game plan, and someone else on our group attached themselves to that game plan, which in the end of things helped us out a lot, versus taking the bait or the very clear like objective of like, this is the thing we're doing.
Right.
And that came through just having that substance in the character development and the world building. Because really, I mean, world building is just the further you get down into the details comes down to when you get to the characters, right?
Yeah.
It starts the framework of like
adventure.
Exactly. It starts with the framework of world into regions, into people, into cities, into the individual people in that city and how they interact.
Right.
But
so let's do as building a world. Let's take I'm going to lay out things in front of you, and we're going to build something together.
Okay.
And you're going to make choices based on what I put in front of you for what you want to build.
Mm-hmm.
So first we'll start with, do we want to build a village, a town, which is a little bigger, or a city? Which one do you want to start with?
This is exciting. Let's do a town. I like a little bit more going on.
Okay. You want a town?
A town.
All right. In this town, what is the seasons like? Do we have a long summer, a long winter?
Ooh.
Do they hit each season effectively? Are we up north where it's cold, south where it's hot?
Let's do far northern, like where it's like mostly cold most of the year, and then for like 3 months it's sunny.
Okay.
Or one of those things where I mean 3 months of no darkness.
Okay.
Where it's just like all bright out.
Is that where we're at? It's the 3 months of all bright?
Yes, the 3 months of all sun.
Okay. Is there any snow on the ground?
None. Or not in the village, but like in the surrounding mountains, you can see the snow's there.
So we're tucked in surrounding mountains.
Uh-huh.
Okay. How many suns are in the sky?
Oh shit. Damn. Okay. One Earth size, like what we see to be what would be similar to our Earth or sun, our sun in our solar system.
Some moons in the background.
And 2 moons. One that would be about double the size of our Earth's moon.
Okay.
And one that's about half the size in the further distance out.
Gotcha.
Seen in the daylight still.
Okay. So that's, and we're kind of, are we surrounded by mountains, or are we surrounded by mountains and then there's a valley?
We are
So you're
tucked. We're tucked in the mountains.
Okay.
We are
Excellent.
Switzerland.
The trees in the mountains surrounding us, are they tall pines, tall redwoods, thick oaks?
If I'm thinking about this, wow, this is amazing. Okay. So I'm gonna say, because we're in the mountains, and this area would probably usually have a lot of water because it has a lot of like sitting snow, so it constantly has a water supply to the plants. They're all going to constantly be competing for height for the sun. So big, just like unbelievably tall redwoods.
Okay.
Just not something you would see in our natural world. Maybe something you would see in like a dinosaur time frame where just the oxygen levels are ridiculous and everything is just enormous and huge. And you have these trees that are all competing for sunlight because they're in this mountain range, and they all are just utilizing that endless supply of water and just reaching for sun is the only thing they need left.
Okay. And the ground, do we have a lot of pine needles on the ground, or do we have thick grass? What's the soil like?
Wow, that one's actually kind of tough, because if we're in a colder region, it's going to be covered in snow for the most of the time. But when the snow melts away, the grass won't be all that prominent until we get to that like 3-month period where it's all sunny. And we're in that 3-month period where it's all sunny. I still do think, because we have such big, thick, tall redwoods, it's going to be like very soft foliage of pine needles.
Okay.
Predominantly.
Okay. And even though it's sunny, you guys are tucked up north. Mm-hmm. When you first step out in boots into this forest on the soil, what's the sound when your boots hit the ground? What does it sound like?
It's like a soft cushiness, like crunchy. Like if you were to step on semi.
It's like a crunch with that spongy.
Exactly.
After,
like if you were to fall on it, it wouldn't hurt that bad.
Okay.
And each step would sound like you're crushing 40 small little branches, you know, because it's just.
What does the air smell like?
It would be crisp, because it's still cold. You're in a colder area, even though it's sunny, right? But it's not cold enough to produce snow, and it's not overcast.
So if you draw in a deep enough breath, does it kind of?
Yeah, it would grip you a little bit. Yeah, it would grip you a little bit. Okay. So just fresh. You're in the mountains, or up high. A lot of trees producing a lot of oxygen.
What are you hearing?
Birds.
Yeah, lots of them.
Birds, maybe some squirrels.
Okay.
Squirrel-esque creatures that are scurrying in and out of the. Maybe they've made a huge colony of these squirrel-esque-like creatures that go through in these trees. These trees would be such a dominant force within nature, literally, because of how big they are, that there could be creatures that could thrive super well in them, and then so it could be just flush in the entire region with these kind of creatures that go throughout the trees.
Okay. Now the town itself, the streets, are they cobblestone or are they dirt?
I think it would be dirt, because to keep something like cobblestone maintained, you need to have access to it constantly. And plus, in the colder months when it's not sunny at all, most of it's going to be frozen over anyway. So keeping up on something like that would kind of probably be impossible to unnecessary. So mostly just well-beaten path ground. Okay. You know?
And you have a town of... So in a town, you're a little above 100 people. Mm-hmm. So how many buildings? 10, 15 different buildings?
10, 15 different buildings. Maybe...
That aren't residents, by the way. That aren't residential homes.
Oh, so just 10 or 15 buildings that are...
Shops,
stores,
marketplaces.
Blacksmith, things like that. Yeah.
Okay.
10 to 15.
So what's distinct about your town? Give me a building specifically that would stand out.
Ooh, a building specifically.
A building specifically that would stand out. That's unique. Do you have a temple? Is there a mansion that's kind of like the Winchester House, sort of old with all these little quirks to
it. I want to go something different. It's always different. I think you always picture something like a chapel or some sort of like building like that would be like the staple of your town. I want these mountainous people to be craftsmen, and I want their biggest, most prominent building to be this magnificent blacksmith facility.
Like a forge.
Like a forge, but like amazing forge.
What a forge that, extends to the sky.
Yes.
Because you want the sunlight from it.
Right.
So think...
It's one of the few things that's going to not tower the trees, but challenge the trees for sun.
So we're talking 60 to 80 feet up.
Multi-story.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's renowned. It's in this village, it's essentially why everyone's there. They are unique craftspeople that are essentially chosen to live here based on their craft and their skill.
Okay.
And this region, because of its trees, creates a unique environment for how hot the fires of the forge can burn. Okay. Because of its relative elevation, even though it pinches it off with the, let's say, like some sort of sap that's produced in this wood, and that's very specific to these trees that are in this region that thrive off of the 3 months of just raw sunlight, and then all year soaking up energy throughout the year. So
now we have a town that's basically craftsmen. What about miners? They're going to be mining some sort of unique ore as to why they have a forge there. So give me a unique name for an ore not known in the world.
Ooh.
Gengarian ore.
Ooh. A unique ore.
Yeah. Anything.
Clarn.
Okay, we'll take Clarn. So Clarn ore, which is very unique, very, very strong, but say it has a glassy texture to it, which makes it so unique as to why this grand forge has been created and why all these people here. Now, with those basics, throw in a guild that might live here. Come up with a guild name.
The Encounters.
Okay, and what do they do?
What does the guild do?
Yeah.
Meaning what exactly?
What's the objective of being in this guild? Is it the finest craftsmen in the realm?
They are essentially a pivotal point in any war that takes place, not because of them taking sides, but whoever has them creating the materials.
They're war profiteers.
The war profit, exactly. They don't take sides. It's literally who pays the top dollar for the best crafted war pieces known at the time.
So let's make this town even more unique.
Okay.
Now you have to choose a political position. Now, what's unique and what I can see you doing for your town is your political leader could be the Grandmaster Artisan. Or whoever the best blacksmith is.
Yeah.
You never see that in other worlds.
No.
Who's your leader? Oh, the dude that makes stuff the best.
Religious guy. Guy who heals everybody with monies.
Yeah, with monies.
Yeah.
Elected official who has a great conscience.
Right. Somebody who was one of the founders of this area, like not directly, but his descendants. He's a descendant of the founders of the area, and they were the first to recognize the unique properties of the woods in this area and the uniqueness of this region itself geologically.
Okay.
And they began to, a couple hundred years ago, perfect their craft into creating the finest war materials known. So he would be like a great grandchild, and who has also been passed down trade secrets that only their family knows about. And they essentially could be the people who lay out the floor plans. And it's like, look, this is now what we're making.
Okay.
And everyone's like, and this is how you do it. And these are the materials, and these are the people who refine the Clarn to bring it to you. And this is the what essentially we're doing, like a factory.
So now we know what they're really
skilled
good
professionals.
At,
yeah.
Right. We have basics of what they're strong in, what they're known for, why people are here, some political aspects, a guild. The houses, I imagine, are going to be probably log homes with phenomenal roofs that are maybe made of this Clarn ore, maybe huge scape. Would you add gargoyles on the roofs of these households? Ooh. I mean, they're craftsmen, or
they wouldn't be quite known as gargoyles. I would think that there would be some sort of myth of a creature that feeds on those squirrel things.
Okay.
And so almost like a chupacabra type thing. Okay. But something a little bit meaner. No wings, because it's something that climbs and jumps between the wolf and an orangutan.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, okay. something like that, something gnarly that would just go through and can live off of those just endless supply of those squirrel creatures, which also supply a huge part of the food for the town.
Are there walls around your town?
No.
No walls.
It's not necessary. It's a very difficult region to reach. And to most, it is unknown of its location because of how sheltered it is from the rest of the world. And to get there, you kind of have to be invited in or accepted in because of how good you are at your craft.
I like it. And what's the tavern's name called?
Oh, the tavern, the place where people get drunk, dude?
Yeah. Most important part, good tavern name.
Unified Minds.
Unified Minds. I love it.
It actually works.
It does. So, okay. All right. So now there's a couple things that you've just created. Number one, you have a very peaceful, surreal, naturistic scene. Mm-hmm. With the town itself has a very driven, ambitious type of people.
Very artsy.
And they're very neutral.
Yes.
So what you've created is a sort of peaceful, neutral, artisan crafted area. Mm-hmm. It has a feel. It has an identity. Mm-hmm. Based on answering some of the simpler questions.
Yeah. I could see it.
I can see it too. But all the questions I asked, how many of them did you think were coming?
0. I've never built a world before, really. I mean, I did some game development back in the day, but that was never near as in depth.
Yeah.
As something like that.
One of the things, and by no means am I saying that I'm an expert at world building or that my worlds are a top tier.
Right.
But what I've found to be extremely successful with immersing people is asking the little questions that we just don't think about.
Yeah, that's exactly. And I just answered everything just right off the top of my head. I didn't have anything pre-planned or anything. I just rocks or no rocks, rocks, and then everything kind of just fell into place as we answered more and more questions. Because now I can see them as being like these kind of like strong, sturdy, but joyous people that are happy and in their area because they are unique. And now they know they're unique.
Now we'll take it a couple more steps further. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we're still in this realm, right? Mm-hmm. And we've put in maybe 20 minutes in this scenario so far. Mm-hmm. And this is just one little place to give people an idea of what you can really do. Now, are we dealing with humans? What race are we dealing with in this area?
Yes, humans.
Okay.
Humans here.
Because they're relatively
actually, you know what would work even better is half orcs.
Half orcs. Okay.
Like human orcs. Like they have a little more intelligence in them in craft because they are human.
Any distinct
but they have
traits?
That strength and power of an orc.
Any distinct physical traits?
Distinct physical traits. I would say they would be more blocky people.
Okay.
They would be more stocky, blocky, not as tall. Which is maybe why they love the trees so much, is they're looking at something that's so stark contrast to them. They're always seen as like a shorter, smaller breed. Maybe they have that little man syndrome, like I can do it, I can build it, and then they're just contrast is they're these beautiful tall trees that they literally look up to.
What kind of drawl do they have when they talk? What's the jargon? Any unique words that you might only hear in this area?
Unique words.
I would think have sort of a gruffly voice.
Yeah, they would have a very strong, earthy tone to what they say.
Kind of guttural.
Yeah, deep.
Okay.
Deep. Maybe a little nasally because it's always cold.
Kind of a nasally.
Guttural. Yeah, exactly. Like because they have 2 things working against them. That was good though. They have 2 things working against them. One, it's always cold. So no matter if you live in the region or not, you're gonna be susceptible to colds.
So that's what are they wearing then? Are they wearing furs? Are they wearing
furs upon furs upon furs? Just stacked. Just like the Game of Thrones at the wall. Just like 14 animals on top of them, And because they're stocky people, they wouldn't necessarily be proud of their stature as far as how small they are. So they're going to want to make themselves look and feel big. Okay. And of course they're going to want to be comfortable. It's going to be cold and they're going to want to be like that. Now, if they're working at the forge, I would say there would almost not be a direct uniform, but a certain something they have to wear when they're there.
Okay.
Because they're going to be seen as a people that are proud of what they do and who they are. So in order to work at this world-renowned forge, they have to be wearing something that
What about
signifies it.
gloves that discern your level and expertise?
Oh,
Think of
that'd be
a
amazing.
Belt, like a
yeah.
karate belt.
Like a belt, but it's
you're
like
trying to get the next set of gloves.
exactly, because everyone who's at the forge needs to have gloves. But if
And
you have a
the
certain
leader
kind, you know exactly what they're going to be.
Wearing some dragon scale.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that's the goal, is to get the dragon scale gauntlets.
Right, to be up,
You wanna
be at the top.
up there at the top. Okay. Religion.
Religion would be very, very, very nature based.
Okay.
Very nature based.
So we're talking
about the sun, and then
so like Palor or Melora. Palor's sun, Melora's sort of nature.
What if there's some sort of like dichotomy between choosing between Melora?
So it's an open. They kind of work hand in hand.
Exactly.
Like baptism and Catholicism.
They like to think of their world as like a yin and yang, because they live in a lot of darkness and cold, and then they live in 3 months of just pure, never-ending sun and light.
So maybe by color of fur, if they're wearing a darker fur, like a brown wolf or something, you can discern them. Oh, Melora.
Exactly.
They're wearing a white fur. Oh, Palor.
Yeah.
And so
it can literally be that simple. But they're very like things in nature. They both can accept their difference, in that they even though differ, accept each other.
Where people don't.
They like, hey, you're different.
For their
you're
religion.
different, and that doesn't suck to me. You're different, and that's good, because we need balance.
I think that's okay. Cool. So now we have some key characteristics. What's the biggest threat this town is facing?
Being their location being given up to the world. So
they want isolation.
They want isolation. They don't really want everyone to know where they are. It's kind of one of those things where they go to their trade location. People don't come to them. They bring their trade to a location.
So even though most of them are builders, there has to be some sort of
transportation
role for someone to go out and scout and go learn current events. Someone of some sort of charismatic ability has to be the one that goes out into the world, figures out what's happening with wars, and then brings the people involved.
So a messenger or scout.
Yeah.
Probably someone that they would want to send there that's maybe in training to be an artisan. Maybe it's a prospect type thing, but a prospect chosen because of how charismatic they are.
So
and how
what's
they
the
can,
general intelligence of this area then?
like level, if I would scale it,
Yeah.
or so 1 being an animal or a squirrel, and 10 being some omnipotent being.
We'll take like,
or like,
are they book smart? Do they like to sit down and read? Is their knowledge there? Or are they more of a working class? Are they more of a blue collar or white collar?
I would say they are more blue collar.
Okay.
But to such an extent, they are geniuses at what they do.
Right.
So they're not. They can hold a conversation.
Right.
They're not idiots. They're not just like bang bang do this.
But they value their trade more than they value.
They value what they can do with their hands more than how they can read a book.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there any magic in this area?
Ooh, magic. I think there does need to be an element of magic. I think they believe in magic because of the region they live in is so unique that it's almost as if the gods had created it for people like them to inhabit it, to utilize the resources in this area.
So let's go back to that sap.
Yes, the sap. I think the uniqueness of these types of trees, the environment the trees are put in, creates a very unique sap that can be used for forging as well as food.
So now that you have this magical sap in this area, we've created another fear. What if people discover the properties of this sap and now want to come? They haven't lived on the land. They haven't molded the land. Now you have a threat of people coming in to harvest these trees simply for the sap, and you have another external threat.
So that, I guess, would also lay into them making very sure that their location isn't known and people they trade with don't know.
Which now we have a real reason as to why that may be a possibility. Why people might want to come find them.
So they would have to have some sort of, I would say, traps in place.
Maybe they don't yet. Maybe
that's part of what they're building right now.
Maybe when we put characters in this world and they find them, maybe that's the next plot line. That's the development.
Damn.
No one's affected the sap yet, but now that threat becomes real, and now you have a starting point. You have a reason for people to be there to help and whatever. So we've done a phenomenal little location.
I like it.
Hardest part. You know what the hardest part is?
Oh no.
The name.
Oh God.
It's the name. It's always the name, man.
Oh, the name. Okay. I'm looking around for inspiration. It's tough without just being terrible. Like, I want to use generic words, but like just put two generic words together and make a name. But then also, I want to make up a word for a unique area. What about Clarnton?
Clarnton's good.
Clarnton. It's
not?
sort of Clarn is their or. Right. Clarnton would be like, they'd be like, wow, what is this? We don't even know what it is. The guy who discovered it's like, well, I'm calling it Clarn. This is Clarnton.
Yeah.
Not the best, not the worst, but I could see Clarnton being a realistic thing.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It's named after. Another thing you can do is take a name of the founder and name it after him. Something like that. Mm-hmm. The names are tricky. We could do almost an entire segment on names.
His name could be, and again, I don't know what half orc names would be, but like to me, Victor is an old name. So it'd be like Victor Clarn.
Victor Clarn, yeah.
Victor Clarn could be.
I like my orc names with double syllabled, so like Gadu or Argvan, something like that.
Oh,
the little top tick mark.
Oh damn, yeah. See, I'm not as experienced in that, so that would take me some time.
But who cares? We create. So Clarnton, we'll throw in Adventaria. I like it.
Huh.
I like it.
That's awesome.
Built it, we'll throw
that's
it in
fucking
there.
Dope, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love
that's
it.
awesome because it's just because, like we said, going back to the beginning, world building is ever evolving. Mm-hmm. There's creatures on our Earth that we don't know that we're discovering right now today.
So I do this with Logan and Dave a lot for different cities.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Happens. Because as a writer, man, sometimes your wheels start to spin. It's a real thing that happens, especially when you're designing a world and you've worked on it for a long time. You're just like, but oh my gosh, there's so many people. If you know the right questions to ask, like, that's awesome. Now I need you to sign this dotted line.
Thanks,
that's
man.
amazing. You made this? I made this.
I used to do this all the time for animating and doing storyboards because I get stuck and just my brain would just not do anything. And I would be like, I just need you to sit down and storyboard with me. They're like, well, I don't know anything about animation. I'm like, you don't. I just need to talk to you. I'm going to ask you certain questions, and I'm going to put us in a scenario, and let's just go. Let's just play it through. I need some sort of catalyst to get me moving. And I think it's very similar. Because
it is.
I've never world built to that extent before. This is all new to me.
That town you built's amazing.
I like it a lot.
It's completely organic. Yeah.
Right?
And it... First off, what we just did is really not that easy.
Okay.
we
like, look, you just do it and it's done.
Everyone at home's like,
fucking done.
Why the hell am I not doing it? You did that pretty well.
Thank you.
But that's part of it. That's just all those questions that I asked, all those things that I did. If you're building a world, do those things. Mm-hmm. But the key factors is now you can describe a scene incredibly well.
I can see it.
Yeah, as an adventure walks
I already know how the people are going to be if you ventured into that town. Like, if the campaign, let's say a new campaign started in this town, and this is where these people were meeting, these people would be, like, everyone would be looking at them in the town, like that's not okay.
Oh, who's that?
You don't just get to walk in here. And maybe the people that are there don't even know that they weren't supposed to be here. They think, this is a jolly old town. Cool, this is nice. Where do we go to eat? And everyone would just be, like, dropping their forks and plates, like, what's going on? Yeah. Who are you? It would really not be okay that they were there. And again, that's just because from what we just sculpted.
Yeah.
All those details made it much more clear for me, even as a non-DM, how I would treat different scenarios in that town. Because I know ahead of time how the people kind of are. Without even knowing the characters of the people. I just know how the people in general would be.
And the fun part about this is now you can take the exact opposite of every single question you answered and throw that area on the other side of the world.
Yep.
And you have another area that's completely opposite. And now you have polar opposites, which are phenomenal when you game and when you build a world. It's nice to have opposites.
That would be a lot of fun.
You really have just created two worlds in one.
That's fucking dope. Especially because of how uniquely located I think it is. I think it's something along the equator.
Yeah.
would be harder to flip flop, but where they had such extremes, tall trees, 3 months all sunlight, very very cold. You know what I mean? Flipping that on the flip side, maybe it's 3 months of just pure darkness always.
You're in a swampland. It's very open.
Yeah.
The trees are kind of dead. It's constantly dark. The people there have two very clashing religions, which have created conflict. They're not crafty people, but they're very book smart people. They're very
learned.
Spell books, magistrates, the works. You just take it the different direction from when you take, the one we just talked about, and you've developed two different sort of opposites. And as time goes on, as you run a campaign and characters go through this world and they go to all these different flavorful places, it's awesome. One of the things I really like to do is color scheme as well.
That's like the I used to do that for animation or animating as well. I called it the George Lucas effect.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's an actual thing or not, but I always noticed, like when I was a kid, I remember just Star Wars, watching the older Star Wars when I was younger. What stuck out to me was the very distinct regions.
Yes.
Be like forest, dense forest, thick covered snow, pure desert, like just very, very distinct regions.
Right. So for your color scheme, I'm thinking, what, greens,
dark, rich reds.
Yeah.
Because like the bark of the trees.
Yep.
Whites because of the snow that's around the neighboring areas. Grays for the rocks faces and stuff like that.
And so take those three colors, and then now use those same three colors for if they were to have a banner, or if they were to have a flag, or the guild colors, or the guild. Use those colors in continuity. Keep applying those same colors again and again and again. And what some people they try to do, and I've seen this a lot, is some DMs get too colorful. They really do.
Oh yeah,
and
I could see that.
You've now
oversaturated it and took away its major features. Like, and I think one unique color that can be a little bit different could be like the fiery ember gold that comes from the sap. Yeah, people used to think about how beautiful the sap is.
Maybe the Clarn ore matches that color of the sap too. Yeah, and that creates this. Okay, there's flavor. Sap. There's this Clarn ore. What caused this? And now you have another little quest line, plot lines.
Exactly.
Those are all those things we can develop.
And they could have this. They can have like a chemist or something in town that's experimenting with those kind of things.
Right.
But yeah,
it was awesome, man.
I love it.
Clarnton,
dude.
Tune in to our streams, and maybe one of these days we'll come across Clarnton.
Woo! That'd be amazing.
It was a lot of fun. I love this. Creating a world. If you guys have any other questions, and this is probably one part of a segment. We might do some other episodes in between of other categories, but we'll come back to some more world building and stuff like that, because to be fair, we've kind of just touched the tip of the iceberg in world building.
It's wonderful.
We
basically did the city. A city.
Yeah, we did a city.
And how to build a city, which is a lot.
Some of the basics.
Yeah.
Which, as you can see.
But there's still so much more to go.
Putting a town together is like.
A lot.
Whew.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I love it.
It was great.
The most for me, it's the most joy I get out of this process.
I can.
Besides interfacing with my friends.
Yeah, I absolutely see it. I can absolutely see it, which is cool. I had no idea that we were to do that at all, so that was really cool.
Right, I love it.
We built a world with a novice, so it can be done.
It can be done.
It can be done
by anyone.
All right, guys.
We're gonna wrap it up. Thanks so much for watching us.
Woo!
Woo!